Elena Frost hadn't cried in 12 years, not since she built her empire from the ashes of her father's bankrupt company. At 32, she was the youngest CEO of Titanium Industries, a woman carved from marble and winter storms. Her employees whispered that she had ice water in her veins, that she'd fire you for breathing too loudly. They weren't entirely wrong. Elena had learned early that emotion was a weakness, vulnerability was a target, and trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her penthouse suite reflected her perfectly. All glass, steel, and sharp angles that cut anyone who got too close. She liked it that way. Controlled. Predictable. Safe. Until the fire changed everything. It started in the building's electrical system at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. By the time Elena smelled smoke, flames had already consumed 3 floors below her penthouse. She evacuated with nothing but her laptop and the clothes on her back, watching from the street as firefighters battled the inferno that swallowed her sanctuary. The building would take 6 months to repair. 6 months of hotels, she thought, already mentally calculating costs and inconveniences. But her assistant Marcus had other ideas. "You can't live in hotels for half a year," Marcus insisted the next morning, his tablet already displaying options. "The press will have a field day. Billionaire CEO homeless. You know how they'll spin it. Besides, every luxury hotel in the city is booked solid with the tech convention." He hesitated before adding, "I have a solution, but you won't like it." Elena's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Try me. My cousin manages properties. He has a rental available immediately. A townhouse in Riverside District. It's modest, but fully furnished and available today." Marcus avoided her gaze. "There's one catch. The owner lives in the basement apartment. He's the security guard at your building, actually. David Mitchell. Single father, keeps to himself, very quiet. You'd barely know he was there." Elena's jaw tightened. Living with someone? Sharing space with a stranger? A security guard with a child, no less? The very thought made her skin crawl, but as she glanced at her phone, 17 missed calls from reporters, 5 from competitors pretending concern, and a message from her ex-boyfriend offering his couch with a winky emoji. She realized she had no choice. Pride was expensive, but privacy was priceless. "Fine," she bit out. "But tell Mr. Mitchell I expect absolute discretion and distance. I don't want to see him, hear him, or know he exists." David Mitchell had exactly $3.47 in his checking account when Marcus called about the rental. His daughter Lily's birthday was in 2 weeks. The hospital bills from her pneumonia last month were drowning him, and his truck needed new brake pads. The security job paid enough to survive, barely, but the basement apartment came with his building manager cousin's property as a package deal. He'd never rented the upper floors before, couldn't afford to lose the income if tenants trashed the place or didn't pay. But Marcus's offer was 6 months up front, more money than David had seen in 5 years. "She's very private," Marcus warned. "Don't expect friendliness. Ms. Frost is particular." David almost laughed. He'd seen Elena Frost exactly 3 times in his 2 years working security at Titanium Tower. Each time, she'd walked past him like he was furniture, her heels clicking decisively on marble, her face an expressionless mask. He'd heard the rumors, that she'd made the executive cry during a meeting, that she'd rejected 12 merger offers with single-word emails, that she'd never been photographed smiling. The tabloids called her the Ice Queen of Industry. His daughter called her the mean pretty lady. "I'll stay out of her way," David promised, thinking of Lily's wish list for her birthday party. "She won't even know we're here." He had no idea how wrong he was. Elena arrived at the townhouse expecting the worst and finding something even more disturbing: charm. The building was old but lovingly maintained, with window boxes full of cheerful flowers, a bright red door, and, she nearly recoiled, a welcome mat with a smiling sunflower. Inside was worse. Warm hardwood floors, overstuffed furniture that looked comfortable rather than expensive, photographs of strangers laughing on the walls, and the lingering scent of vanilla and cinnamon. It was so aggressively homey that Elena felt like she'd stumbled into a sitcom. "Ms. Frost?" David appeared from the basement stairway, and Elena's memory of the invisible security guard sharpened into focus. He was taller than she remembered, probably 6'2", with dark hair beginning to gray at the temples and eyes the color of warm honey. He wore faded jeans and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms marked with old scars. He looked nothing like the polished executives in her world, and something about his complete lack of intimidation unsettled her. I put fresh sheets on the bed and stocked the fridge with basics. Keys are on the counter. I work nights mostly, so you'll have full privacy during the day. Perfect, Elena said crisply, already pulling out her phone to create a barrier. I trust you understand the importance of discretion. Your business is your business. David's tone was neutral, professional, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Pity? Elena bristled. But I should mention, my daughter Lily lives here too. She's 7. She plays outside sometimes after school, but I'll make sure she understands boundaries. A child. Of course. Elena's fingers tightened on her phone. She'd successfully avoided children her entire adult life, treating them like exotic creatures best observed from a safe distance. How delightful. David's jaw twitched. Definitely amusement. I'll let you settle in. He disappeared back down the stairs, leaving Elena alone in a space that felt like it belonged to someone else's life. The first week passed in careful choreography. Elena left for the office at 6 a.m., returned at midnight, and existed in a pristine bubble of work and isolation. She barely saw David, just heard the occasional footsteps overhead late at night, the rumble of his truck leaving for his shift. It was almost tolerable. Then, Lily happened. Elena was working on her laptop in the kitchen on Saturday morning, nursing her third espresso and reviewing hostile takeover documents, when a small face appeared at the sliding glass door. A little girl with wild brown curls and her father's honey-colored eyes pressed her nose against the glass, leaving a smudge that made Elena's eye twitch. "Are you the Ice Queen?" the child asked, her voice muffled but delighted. Elena stared, speechless. The girl didn't wait for an answer, just slid the door open and marched inside like she owned the place. Which, technically, her father did. She wore mismatched socks, paint-stained overalls, and carried a stuffed dragon with one eye missing. "Daddy says I'm not supposed to bother you, but you look sad and lonely, and Mr. Snuggles thinks you need a friend." She held up the dragon. "Also, do you have any cookies? We ran out." "I don't have cookies," Elena said icily, trying to summon the executive presence that made grown men stammer. "And I'm neither sad nor lonely. I'm working." "That's what lonely people say," Lily announced with devastating 7-year-old wisdom. She climbed onto a chair and peered at Elena's laptop. "Those are a lot of boring words. Don't you have any games?" Before Elena could respond, David thundered up the stairs. Lily Marie Mitchell. His face was flushed, hair disheveled from sleep. He must have just woken up after his night shift. "What did I tell you about Ms. Frost's space?" "That she needs boundaries because she's not used to families," Lily recited cheerfully. "But Daddy, she doesn't even have cookies. That's so sad." David's expression cycled through embarrassment, frustration, and exhaustion before landing on resignation. He met Elena's gaze, and she saw something unexpected. He was bracing for her anger, expecting her to be the Ice Queen everyone warned about, prepared to defend his daughter against the cold CEO who'd probably evict them for this violation. Something strange happened in Elena's chest, a crack, small but definite. "It's fine," she heard herself say. The words felt foreign. "I was due for a break anyway." David's eyebrows shot up. Lily beamed, and Elena realized she'd just made a terrible mistake. She'd shown weakness to a 7-year-old with a one-eyed dragon and an uncanny ability to see past walls. The cookies started it. Elena couldn't explain why she'd stopped at the bakery on Monday, why she'd bought the ridiculously expensive chocolate chip cookies, why she'd left them outside the basement door with a note that simply said, "For Lily." She told herself it was good tenant relations, nothing more. But when she heard the child's delighted squeal and David's quiet, "Thank you," through the door, something warm and unfamiliar bloomed in her chest. Lily began leaving drawings under Elena's door. Crude crayon masterpieces with labels. "Ms. Elena at work. She looks mean but isn't." The Ice Queen's secret smile. "Daddy says not to bother you, but here's a dragon." Elena kept every single one in a folder that definitely wasn't special. that she definitely didn't look at during late-night conference calls when exhaustion made her vulnerable. David started appearing more during daylight hours, usually by accident. He'd be fixing something. The leaky faucet Elena had mentioned once, the loose floorboard she'd tripped on, the stuck window in her bedroom. He never asked permission, just quietly made things better. They'd exchange awkward pleasantries. Elena, hyper-aware of how he smelled like sawdust and coffee, how his hands moved with careful competence, how he never looked at her with the calculation or desire she was used to from men. He looked at her like she was simply a person. It was terrifying. One Thursday evening, Elena came home to find her kitchen transformed. Lily had set up a restaurant with paper menus, candles, battery-operated, thankfully, and David hovering uncertainly in the background. Lily insisted, he explained, looking ready to bolt. I told her you'd be too busy, but… Table for one? Lily interrupted, wearing an apron that dragged on the floor and wielding a notepad with the seriousness of a Michelin-starred maitre d'. Our special tonight is mac and cheese with hot dogs. Very fancy. Elena should have said no, should have cited her 17 unread emails, the merger documents waiting for review, the conference call with Tokyo in 2 hours. Instead, she found herself sitting down, accepting a plastic cup of wine, apple juice, and listening to Lily's elaborate explanation of the restaurant's history, founded yesterday, very exclusive, dragons eat free. David cooked while Lily entertained, and Elena discovered that mac and cheese could taste like something other than fuel when made by someone who cared. They didn't talk about work or wealth or the vast chasm between their worlds. They talked about Lily's upcoming birthday, about David's dream of becoming a chef before life had other plans, about the constellation Lily had invented called the Dragon's Smile. When Lily fell asleep on the couch mid-sentence, David carried her downstairs with a gentleness that made Elena's throat tight. He returned alone, and for the first time, they were really alone together. Thank you, he said quietly, for being kind to her. I know this wasn't what you signed up for. She's remarkable, Elena heard herself admit. You've raised her well. Something shifted in his expression, became more open, more vulnerable. It's been just us for 5 years now. Her mother. He paused, choosing words carefully. Lily was 3 when Jessica left. Said she wasn't ready for the responsibility, for the sacrifices. I tried to be enough for both of us, but some days… He trailed off, and Elena recognized the exhaustion of someone carrying weight alone. You are enough, she said, and meant it. More than enough. Their eyes met, held, and Elena felt the ice around her heart crack wider. She'd spent 12 years building walls, but this man and his daughter were turning them into windows, letting dangerous things like hope and warmth seep through. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt alive in a way she'd forgotten was possible. Neither of them noticed that in the shadows of the basement stairwell, there were old photographs on the walls. Photographs David had carefully faced backward, hiding a truth that would shatter everything they were building. The next 3 weeks blurred into a routine Elena hadn't known she craved. She started leaving work earlier, timing her arrival to Lily's bedtime stories. David would look up from whatever book they were reading, fantasy adventures where dragons were heroes and outsiders became queens, and smile at her in a way that made her forget about quarterly reports and shareholder meetings. Some evenings, Elena read to Lily while David cooked dinner, his quiet presence in the kitchen becoming the anchor of her day. Other nights, after Lily was asleep, Elena and David would sit in the living room with coffee, talking about everything and nothing. David told her about his dreams of culinary school, derailed by an unexpected pregnancy at 22, about marrying Jessica because it seemed like the right thing, not realizing love required more than good intentions. About the day Jessica walked out, leaving a note and a toddler who kept asking when mommy was coming home. He spoke without bitterness, just weary acceptance, and Elena found herself sharing things she'd never told anyone. My father built Frost Industries, she admitted one night, wine loosening her tongue. Everyone thinks I inherited success, but they don't know he lost everything in a bad investment when I was 20. Bankruptcy, scandal, shame. He had a heart attack from the stress. Died before I could fix it. Her hands trembled slightly. I rebuilt the company from nothing, but I had to become someone else to do it. Someone hard. Someone who never makes mistakes or shows weakness. David's hand covered hers, warm and steady. That sounds exhausting. It is, she whispered. And for the first time in 12 years, Elena Frost allowed herself to be tired. The kiss happened naturally, inevitably. One moment they were talking about Lily's birthday party preparations. The next, David was tucking a strand of hair behind Elena's ear, his touch achingly gentle. "Is this okay?" he asked, and Elena answered by closing the distance between them. The kiss was soft, questioning, nothing like the aggressive passion she was used to from men who wanted to conquer the Ice Queen. This was different. This was someone asking if she wanted to be found. Elena pulled back, breathless and terrified. "I don't know how to do this," she confessed. "I don't know how to be soft." "You're already soft," David said, thumb brushing her cheek. "You've just been protecting yourself. But Lily and I aren't going to hurt you." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But 12 years of armor didn't dissolve with one kiss and pretty words. "I need time," she managed. "Take all the time you need," he promised. "We're not going anywhere." Lily's birthday party was planned for Saturday at the townhouse, a small affair with 5 friends from school, pizza, and a dragon-themed cake David had practiced for weeks. Elena had surprised herself by offering to help, spending her lunch breaks shopping for decorations and dragon party favors that cost more than the average person's monthly rent. She told herself it was just being a good tenant. Her racing heart when Lily hugged her in gratitude suggested otherwise. Thursday night, Elena was working late at the office when her phone buzzed with a text from David. "Lily's asking for you, nightmare. I know you're busy, but..." She was in her car before he finished typing. She found Lily curled in David's lap on the couch, tear-streaked and shaking. "The bad dream," Lily whimpered. "The one where Mommy comes back and takes me away and Daddy can't find me." Elena sat beside them, instinct overriding uncertainty. "Your daddy will always find you," she said firmly. "Always. That's what good fathers do." "What about good mommies?" Lily asked, and Elena's breath caught because she heard the real question. "Will you leave too?" "Good mommies stay," Elena said, the words raw and honest. "They fight dragons and hold your hand and learn how to braid hair even when they're terrible at it." She met David's gaze over Lily's head, saw her own fear and hope reflected there. "They show up." Lily fell asleep between them, and Elena stayed until dawn, watching this small family she was terrified of wanting. This impossible dream she had no right to claim. When she finally left for the office, David caught her hand. "Elena," he said, and her name had never sounded like that before. Like a prayer, like a promise. "I'm falling in love with you. I need you to know that before..." He stopped, something shadowed crossing his face. "I need you to know." "Before what?" she asked, but he just shook his head, kissed her forehead and let her go. She should have pressed, should have recognized the warning in his eyes.